One of my biggest fears is showing up and being emotionally present and vulnerable and open and not getting it back in the same way. You put yourself out there. You extend yourself further than you're comfortable. And for whatever reasons you're doing it, it's like walking a tightrope over a canyon. And one slip and it's over. That's what it feels like when you're vulnerable in places you've never been before. And that's where the growth is. It's a fear. It's a tremendous fear of being hurt that keeps us locked away and walled up. I am terrified of being vulnerable with another human being. Terrified. I have experienced tremendous loss of love when I was most open and vulnerable. And I can't even put into words how devastating that was and how that has affected my life going forward. When you extend yourself for somebody else in ways that you didn't think were possible, that felt amazing, that the way you felt towards this person was so strong that fear didn't have a chance. Just doesn't stand a chance. Because there is no more fear. Because then there's desire and there's passion. And that takes over. And your safe, best judgment goes out the window. And it feels good because you feel free. You feel free to express what you're feeling and you're not worried about loss. That's the best place I've ever lived. That was one of the most freeing times I had ever spent in my life. It turned out so bad that I shut that place off. And I've been afraid to go there. I'd dip my toe in a little here and there, and then I'd be like, oh, not ready. And I'd let some time go by, and I would do the work on the issues and dip the toe in again, not ready. You're never fully ready. I had gotten to the point where I just thought I was never going to be able to open up again. I was never going to be able to be vulnerable. And I was never going to be able to let anybody in. I never thought anybody was going to cross my path that would make me want to open up, to be vulnerable, to say what I felt, when I felt it, and how I felt it, and express myself truly for the feelings that I was having. I know that taking a chance on somebody else means I have to open up myself to loss again. I have to put myself face to face with one of the things I fear most in this world, and that is emotional loss. But the way I've been living, nobody's getting in. I could not be vulnerable. You are only as happy and as free as you allow yourself to be. And when you carry scars from childhood and from later on in life, intimate relationships, every time you get hurt, we close up more and more. Actively opening yourself up practicing being vulnerable, showing yourself to others without fear. You know, that gets easier on like street level, just average humans where you're not deeply emotionally connected to. When that emotional connection kicks in, the stakes are deeper and the fear just somehow comes up. And you thought you've tackled it, you thought you worked your way through it, you thought you were ready. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm back in it. And that's the choice you could make. I can continue to live the way I was living, shut down, withdraw, put up walls, and just go back to my little isolated place of safety. Or I can open up, and I can be honest, and I can be real, and I can be genuine. And I'm vulnerable. And I've just opened myself up to loss and hurt. But I've also opened myself up to possibilities that weren't there before. I've opened up myself to growth. I've opened myself up to the possibility of being heartbroken again. And there's a part of my heart that's like, dude, please, not again. But my soul is screaming, and it's pushing through the fear, and it's allowing me to sit in this and absorb it. See, I want to say how I feel. I feel like I want to be safe doing it, but there's no guarantee. So when you put yourself out there and you say how you feel and you don't get the response that you want, my reaction goes from feeling really good to feeling worthless and abandoned. And that's an issue that I need to work on, and I work on all the time. See, I'm only seeing black and white. I'm not seeing any gray. Everything is pass and fail. If I'm not perfect in your eyes and that connection doesn't feel like what I needed to feel, I go into panic. And I have to learn how to manage that. Because I really, truly, what I need is reassurance. The reassurance that I had never gotten. I don't know how to give myself that reassurance. That I'm still okay. That this person is probably still in my life. That if there aren't, that I will still be okay without them. But when it feels so good, you don't want to live life without them. And you want to know that they feel the same about you. Love is extending yourself for somebody else. Putting the relationship first instead of yourself. Putting the good of the relationship ahead of your fears. See, if I show up in a relationship, I need to extend myself, not wall myself off, or the relationship will never grow. And two people are coming from two different places with two different histories. The feelings underneath are the same. Nobody wants to get hurt. Nobody wants to be made a fool. Nobody wants to be vulnerable and put their neck out and get it chopped off. That was a scary visual, sorry. But it's that navigation between the two, right? So I came from one place, you come from another place. And we have the different fears, and there's different ways that we felt loved and appreciated. And if we're not getting them, maybe we start to get a resentment. Maybe we start to wall up. Maybe we start to withhold. Maybe we get more distant. What we really need to do is extend ourselves by being vulnerable, by sharing what our fears are and the way we reacted and why we reacted, and letting that person know that it has nothing to do with them. It is about me and my history and my past and my nervous system and my issues that caused me to wall up and pull back. And possibly they can support me in it if they care enough to extend themselves And you do the same for them. See, just as we're growing individually, as we're doing the work and we're getting vulnerable and we're journaling, we're sitting with the feelings and we're undoing a role from our family system and we're getting vulnerable with ourselves to grow, you're putting yourself in fear. You're putting yourself in uncomfortable. It's hard to break your own heart. But that's what we need to do with another human being to grow together. Exposing ourselves emotionally to vulnerability. I'm going to tell you that I care about you, that you are important to me, and I am handing over a piece of me to you. And I'm hoping that you're going to take care of it as delicately and as beautifully as I'm going to take care of your piece that you give to me. And that I will always respect this because I know it was a choice to allow me in, to not disrespect that, to not hurt you with it, but to care and nurture and protect it as if it was my own wound. That's love. And that's frightening. It's rewarding as hell. I can tell you that. There's no better feeling than giving your heart to somebody knowing that they're not going to let go of it. And having the responsibility that was given to you of holding theirs. Nothing better. But after all these years and all the scars, how do we get back to that? A lot of it is just luck of the universe. Somebody crossing your path when you least expect it. Depends on the work you've done, where you're at emotionally in your journey in this life. Does it line up? There's just so many variables. Finding this person, you don't even find them. It has to appear, but it's like shooting a piece of loose leaf on its side from 200 yards. It's like impossible to hit. You can't aim for it. You can't chase it. You can't look for it. It's just going to show up when you're ready. And you hope that the other person is ready just as much as you are. And if they're not, do you care about them enough to hold space for them while they grow into it? We heal by extending ourselves to ourselves. We love by extending ourselves to another without anything in return. Just because I love you, that's all. Nothing else. And how hard is that? It's really easy when it's the right person. And sometimes you know instantly, and other times you slowly grow into it. But you know it. When it comes to you and it connects, there will be no discomfort in your body. You will enjoy the peace and the connectedness and the energy that you feel between you. And unless we do the work on ourselves, unless we get confident with the things we're good at and the things we're not good at, true love is really hard to come by. Because how could it be true if you're not being real? My goal in life is to show up and not fear loss. To give freely without fear. There's such a freedom in it. To live life like a child, not thinking about consequences. Being inquisitive. Like everything is magical when you're a kid. The freedom that you have within yourself. The only place that comes later in life is with love through vulnerability, without the walls of protection, without the fears, without the shame. See, there's a part of me that truly believes nobody is going to love me because of my abandonment issues. Because when I feel the abandonment, whether it's real or not, I go into panic and I get very needy. And needy on a grown man does not look good. It's humiliating. It's embarrassing. See, I don't love myself for this part of me, and I don't know how to right now. But I'm working on it. When I do the math and I do it logically in my head and I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it all makes sense. This is why I would feel this way. But I don't know how to make it go away completely. And when it comes, I hate on myself something fierce. Until I can start loving the parts of me that I find unlovable, I will fear loss. Working on intimacy and abandonment issues are difficult because how often are we in open, vulnerable relationships where we get to experience these feelings? How often is it that somebody shows up in our lives that we willingly want to be vulnerable? We want to share our feelings. We don't want to play the games that we play to protect ourselves along the way. It doesn't come that often. So it's hard to work on these issues. And a lot of times when these people show up, whether you want to be that way with, it becomes very scary and people close off and they withdraw before they get into the feelings. So it's hard to do this work because it's not readily available. If somebody shows up in your life that just clicks with you on a level that you know is deep and soulful, try not to shut down. Try not to wall up. Try to keep communicating. Try to understand where you're coming from, where they're coming from. Find some common ground. It's all about communicating common ground. I mean, we can agree to disagree. But if we're both holding our cards so tight to the vest that we can't see what the other one's holding, we stop growing. And there's different levels of relationships. And there's growing pains throughout. You know, the honeymoon period's great. Everybody loves it. So it's easy. It's when you start to get to that emotional, physical intimacy that the feelings come up. And again, how much time do you spend in them to pay attention? I mean, most of us are insecure at that moment and, you know, managing just the insecurities. That we're not paying attention to what we're feeling because of fear. Learning how to be open and vulnerable is a lifelong journey. Freedom is in the vulnerability. Strength is in the vulnerability. Healing is in vulnerability. Love is in vulnerability. You can't have real love without being vulnerable. So take some time and try to get vulnerable with yourself. Try to get through some of the fears. Try to start seeing your reality for what it is. Try to let people in. Let yourself in first. See, most of us don't even know who we are. What makes us tick or why we do things. I have an unconscious in me that makes decisions on my behalf, and I look back 3 days later, I'm like, what the fuck were you thinking, man? Like, where did that even come from? I gotta look at those things. I don't want to unconsciously withdraw or shut down. I want to consciously show up and be present. And as uncomfortable, as difficult as it can be, I'll take the little bit of discomfort for what comes out of it, because it's all rewards. at some point. Even after the hurt and the disappointment, there's growth. And when you become confident in yourself and what you feel and who you are, and you show up as you, the rest of it becomes easier. I don't want to live behind walls anymore. I don't want to hide behind my fears. I want to be open and free. And that takes hard work, and that takes a lot of pain, and that takes a lot of discomfort. If not now, when? I'm never going to sit here and figure it out and be ready. I have to live it to get through it. Thanks for listening. You can contact me at joeryan.com. Follow me on Instagram at joeryan. And if you want, you can leave us a review on iTunes. That'd be great. All right, take care.